Okay, so I know this isn't the biggest topic in Canucks world right now. Like, everybody's talking about Bruce Boudreau, Friedman, and all the guys on the broadcast are talking about whether or not he's going to come back. And to be honest, I do think there is a little bit more that we need to let unravel before we dive into that topic over here. So today we're focusing instead on the Abbotsford Canucks, or excuse me, not the Abbotsford Canucks, the Utica Comets, as we used to call them, and what exactly it was that Trent Cull had to say during a few interviews. Now, I know some Devils fans might be stumbling upon this video and saying, oh, he's talking about the Utica Comets, he's talking about us, that's our farm team. And yeah, even though that's technically the case today, once upon a time the Utica Comets were indeed the Canucks farm team. So we have a few things to highlight when it comes to the old regime, the way Trent Cull views the way the organization is doing stuff now, and the quotes that he had that pretty much ignite this entire discussion. So, Trent Cull made himself an appearance on Sportsnet 650 the other day, and what he did was he talked about the development, he talked about the younger guys, he talked about the systems and the relationships between the Vancouver Canucks and the Abbotsford Canucks. He also talked about the relationship between the Canucks and the Utica Comets, and he had some things here that kind of threw a few shots at the old regime, so Benning and co, before Alvin and Rutherford came in here, and the big quote that was circulating around on Twitter that I saw was published here by Jason Bruff. He is on Halford and Bruff, which is a show on Sportsnet 650. Very interesting chat we're having with Trent Cull. He basically said that the Vancouver Canucks rushed Adam Gaudette into the NHL, and that the new regime is going to do things differently. He said, you need time to acclimate to pro hockey. They also posted the full-on quote on Twitter. This is Sportsnet 650. Someone like Adam Gaudette. Why wouldn't he spend 2 years with us in Utica so that we can groom him and get him better, as opposed to something that is maybe rushed? And this was a really interesting quote. Mostly because if I try to go out there and put my revisionist history goggles on, I try to see what exactly was it the Canucks did with Adam Gaudette, and I tried to retcon it to make it feel a little bit better. Adam Gaudette was a guy, when the Vancouver Canucks took him in the 5th round of the 2015 draft, that nobody really expected to actually become an NHL player. Like, I mean, come on, he's a 5th round pick. You don't usually see guys taken in the 5th round take the leaps and bounds that Gaudette did. He became a Hobey Baker winner in 2017-2018, getting 60 points in 38 games played, and then he spent the next season bouncing up between Vancouver and Utica. He was in the comment system, getting a point per game in the limited sample he had, but in Vancouver he had 12 points in 56 games over there. It was the year after where Gaudette actually kind of exploded, and he had 33 points in 59 games played for the regular Canucks, 12 goals, 21 assists. This 2019-20 season was a really good one because a lot of Canucks fans were like, yeah, Gaudette is developing into what could be a very solid third-line center, a second power play option. You've got Pettersson and Bo as two centers on this team, and Gaudette could be the third. This was back when the Lotto 649 line was a thing, so it was kind of Miller and Pettersson just swapping around in the center spot on the top line. But Trent Cull is going out here and saying that the Canucks rushed Gaudette too quickly into the National Hockey League. And when he says that, I have no doubts he's talking about the 2018-19 year, where Gaudette was a good AHL producer, but the Canucks just had other plans, inserting him into their lineup straight away. A part of me does think, okay, what could Gaudette have done had he stuck around in the AHL the full time? He did have a pretty good scoring record already at the AHL level, so I could understand why, at face value, somebody might not think that he needed to stick around in the AHL for much longer. But, as time went on, it became kind of evident that Gaudette wasn't really the super well-rounded and potent player that a lot of Canucks fans thought he was during the 2019-20 season. In the playoffs, he had 10 games played, he had 0 points. He really disappointed in that postseason run, and it's why, during the next season, he got traded over to Chicago in exchange for Matthew Highmore. If the Canucks decided in 2018-19, okay, Gaudette is going to be a Comet, he's going to go out there, play a full 72-game-year campaign, and he's going to do well. He's going to get 65 points. He's going to know what it's like to be a pro hockey player, and then he'll make the NHL in 2019-20. Who knows if the other aspects of his game that needed work would have indeed been worked on. But that's not the only quote that Trent Cull had that pretty much, threw shots at the old regime. Trent Cull liked the organization sending Podkolzin down for playoff games when, the last time the organization was in the playoffs, Darren Archibald was not sent down for playoff games because the organization was afraid of losing him on waivers. Have to love the shots being fired at Benning and Weisbrod. And that's another one of these things when you look at it in isolation, it doesn't really make as much sense as when you looked at it back then and you looked at it with all the context. Because back when this happened, Darren Archibald, do you remember when Darren Archibald was on this team? Yeah, he was here a long time ago. Go back over to the 2018-19 season when he was back in Vancouver and Utica doing his thing. With context involved, it's like, okay, yeah, it's easy to say, let's not send Archibald down on waivers because if you go on waivers, that means that you're going to lose the guy and he's probably going to get claimed and everything. But then you look at it from the big picture and it's like, wait, that's Darren Archibald you're worrying about. He is, at best, a replacement line-level forward. Like, at the end of the day, you're not losing too much if you lose out on Archibald. You ended up trading Archibald and I believe it was Anders Nielsen for, like, Tom Pyatt and McKenna and a pick or something like that. A little bit after anyway, so it's not really like you went out there and did your team the biggest favor by keeping this guy around. And I know you could go out there and say, Lego, isn't it kind of contradictory for you to make this kind of statement because you've been saying the entire time that Utica and the AHL, these are developmental leagues. These leagues don't exist for the purpose of using older veteran players and giving them a platform and giving them top-line minutes, etc. The AHL serves its purpose by developing young guys, right? Isn't that what you wanted to see? And yes, that is true. There is a part of me that does believe that a majority of AHL development time should be used on younger players, but at the same time, if there are players at the NHL level like Darren Archibald or Vasili Podkolzin that could get sent down to the AHL and actually do stuff, help the team in a positive way, go further in the playoffs, then you take that chance. Sure, Darren Archibald might push some other guy in the Canucks, in the Comet system down a tier, but if you're improving the team, you're giving your team more chances to play. And when it comes to the playoffs and NHL teams sending their guys down on waivers to the AHL for the purpose of the AHL playoffs, like, you see this all the time. We saw at the end after the trade deadline a whole bunch of players get sent down on waivers because they want to play in the AHL. And none of them got claimed because what point does an NHL team have in declaiming a guy that they can't use in the postseason because he wasn't on their reserve list by the time the trade deadline went and passed? Jim Benning just saying, okay, no, we can't send Archibald down on waivers, even though the Utica Comets are in the playoffs, because we're going to lose Archibald on waivers. You're losing Archibald. Like, that's not the biggest loss in the world, and the likelihood of him even getting claimed wasn't really that big of a deal, in my opinion. You then had a few other quotes here from Cull, basically says to have Tampa-like development, they can't rush the prospects and everything like they used to. And we also had Trent Cull talking about how his daughter is on Twitter, and his daughter was hearing everything that we were saying about his dad, how his dad got bashed and asking him if he's getting fired or something. Leo over here says, I know it's a public life and I have done my fair share of bashing, see, Jason Dickinson, but man, is it easy to forget that these guys are people with families as well. Speaking about the human element to this entire thing, he does kind of focus on Jet Wu as well. Cull says that he didn't want to sit Jet Wu in the playoffs, so playing him as a forward at the very least gave him a different perspective as a player, and maybe it would motivate his return for the blue line next season, which, I mean, okay, I could understand if you wanted to play a guy in the playoffs, because as I said, the AHL is a developmental league, so you get guys like Wu and Klimovich that a lot of Canucks fans would prefer to see playing than not playing, or getting played in different positions, but still, like, the team was not doing all too well anyway. You saw the recap video we made about the Canucks, the Abbotsford Canucks, that is, towards the end of the year. They blew the home ice advantage chance that they had. They needed to get 1 point in 2 games against Manitoba. They blew both of those games. And then against Bakersfield in the postseason, in the 2 games they played there, they blew the leads they had too. So, like, man, tough decisions, eh? Tough decisions as the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks AHL squad. So let me know in the comments all your thoughts about what Trent Cull had to say over here. Firstly, about Adam Gaudette being rushed into the NHL, how Darren Archibald was a point of contention because he could have gotten sent down, on waivers albeit, and the Canucks, the main Canucks, did not want to do that. Talk to me as well about Trent Cull and him pretty much knowing about all the criticism he has received on social media, and then Jet Wu and his deployment in the forward position for the Abbey Canucks against Bakersfield in the playoffs. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this British Trolls 99, and bye.